Formula One is known for its speed, innovation, and glory, but behind every podium finish lies a legacy shaped by moments of chaos, crashes that shocked the world, ended careers, saved lives, and changed the sport forever. Let's start with one of the most unforgettable sights in modern F1, Fernando Alonso's crash at the 2016 Australian Grand Prix. It was just the opening race of the season, and Alonso's McLaren collided with Esteban Gutierrez's Haas at full speed. The impact launched Alonso's car into the air. It flipped violently, smashed into a barrier, and came to rest upside down in a heap of carbon fiber and smoke. Spectators watched in disbelief. It looked more like a plane wreck than a racing incident. Yet somehow, Alonso walked away. That moment reminded the world just how far F1 safety had come. Thanks to crash structures, survival cells, and the sport's ever-improving medical protocols, what could have been a fatal crash became a miraculous escape. But not every dramatic moment ends with a safe exit. For that, we go back to Verstappen and several pit crew members were engulfed in flames. Miraculously, all survived, though with injuries and trauma that would leave a lasting impact. The incident triggered discussions around the safety of in-race refueling, but it wouldn't be banned until 2010 after several more dangerous episodes. Yet even that firestorm pales in comparison to what happened just weeks earlier at the San Marino Grand Prix. First came the loss of Roland Ratzenberger. During qualifying, the young Austrian's front wing failed, sending his car straight into a wall at nearly 200 miles. On lap 7 of the race, Ayrton Senna, three-time world champion and F1 icon, went off at the high-speed Tamburello corner and crashed into a concrete barrier. The car disintegrated. A suspension arm penetrated his helmet. He was airlifted from the track but later died in hospital. The sport was shaken to its core. Senna's death, F1's last fatality during a race weekend for over 2 decades, marked a turning point. The FIA, under President Max Mosley and medical delegate Professor Sid Watkins, launched sweeping safety reforms. Track layouts were changed. Concrete barriers were replaced by tire walls and TechPro barriers. Cockpit protection was upgraded, and the mindset around safety shifted forever. These were not just accidents, they were catalysts. But sometimes, even less tragic incidents reveal how fragile the line between performance and disaster can be. Take the infamous 2016 Spanish Grand Prix. 2 Mercedes drivers, Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, collided on the very first lap. They were teammates, championship rivals, and childhood friends. The clash took both cars out of the race and sent shockwaves through the paddock. This wasn't just a racing incident. It exposed the tension that had been simmering between the two for years. Though they maintained professional respect, their friendship never fully recovered. The incident prompted Mercedes to tighten team rules, reinforcing that even elite drivers could not allow personal rivalries to cost the team points. Speaking of rivalries, not all are between teammates. Some are with the track itself. Romain Grosjean's crash at the 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix stunned the world. On the opening lap, Grosjean's Haas veered across the track and slammed into a barrier at over 100. Once criticized for its aesthetics, the halo proved its worth that day. Without it, Grosjean admitted, he might not have survived. This crash, perhaps more than any other in recent memory, silenced the debate around cockpit protection. It became clear. Safety innovations were not optional, they were essential. While some incidents end careers, others, like this, redefine the sport's understanding of survival. But not all F1 crashes are about split-second decisions or mechanical failures. Some result from a long overdue reckoning. Let's revisit the story of Niki Lauda, a driver whose crash changed everything. In 1976, Lauda, then the reigning world champion, voiced concerns about racing in dangerous conditions at the Nürburgring. The track was too long for adequate safety coverage, and weather patterns made it treacherous. He urged the drivers to boycott. Many refused. On lap 2 of the race, Lauda lost control at the Bergwerk corner. His Ferrari hit a wall, burst into flames, and bounced back onto the track, where it was hit by another car. Trapped in the wreckage, Lauda inhaled toxic fumes, suffered severe burns, and slipped into a coma. He was given the last rites at the hospital. But, in one of the most astonishing comebacks in sports history, Lauda returned just 6 weeks later, his face still scarred, to race again. That crash was a wake-up call. It accelerated safety improvements across the board, from driver fireproof suits to emergency response protocols, and it pushed F1 to reevaluate the tracks it raced on. It wasn't just about speed anymore, it was about surviving it. As F1 evolved, so did its understanding of risk. But not every crash rewrites the rulebook. Some simply expose the emotional and psychological toll of the sport. In 2019, at the Belgian Grand Prix for Formula 2, just one step below Formula 1, Antoine Hubert lost his life in a devastating crash at the high-speed Eau Rouge Raidillon complex. On lap 2, Hubert's car struck the barrier and rebounded into the path of another driver. The second impact, direct, violent, and unavoidable, shattered the chassis. The motorsport world mourned. But it also took action. The FIA launched an in-depth investigation, and the results led to further safety improvements in car construction, track barriers, and race weekend procedures. That crash became a painful reminder that even in modern motorsport, the danger is real, and the need for vigilance is constant. Coincidentally, that same section, Eau Rouge, nearly claimed the life of one of F1's most important safety advocates decades earlier. Jackie Stewart, the three-time world champion, crashed at Spa-Francorchamps in the 1960s and found himself trapped upside down in his car, soaked in fuel, with no marshals nearby. Fellow drivers had to rescue him using a borrowed spanner. That moment changed Stewart forever. He began campaigning fiercely for better medical access, safer tracks, and standardized safety equipment long before it was fashionable. He faced resistance. People called him weak. But today, Stewart is credited with laying the foundation for the safety culture that defines F1. As Stewart once said, back then, the barriers weren't walls, they were trees. Today, that kind of negligence is unthinkable. And yet, accidents still happen. At the 2022 British Grand Prix, Chinese driver Guan Yu Zhou suffered one of the most frightening crashes of the modern era. At the start of the race, a tangle of cars flipped Zhou's Alfa Romeo upside down. It skidded across the asphalt, then the gravel, and finally launched over the tire barrier, coming to rest against the catch fence just meters from the crowd. It was terrifying, but miraculously, Zhou walked away, protected once again by the halo. He later wrote, "I'm okay, the halo saved me today." This was another moment that reinforced the value of safety tech that had once been controversial. Without the halo, Zhou's survival would have been unlikely. Unfortunately, even advanced technology has limits. In 2014, young driver Jules Bianchi crashed at the Japanese Grand Prix in conditions worsened by heavy rain. A car had already spun out, and a large recovery crane was deployed to lift it. Tragically, Bianchi lost control at the same corner and slid underneath the 6.5-ton vehicle. He suffered a severe head injury and never regained consciousness. He passed away in 2015. This incident forced the FIA to implement major changes, including stricter protocols for deploying recovery vehicles, the introduction of the virtual safety car system, and scheduling day races earlier to avoid dusk and poor visibility. It was a painful but necessary reckoning. Still, some crashes don't end in tragedy, but in fractured partnerships. At the 2018 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Red Bull teammates Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen were engaged in a fierce battle. After a series of aggressive defensive moves from Max, Ricciardo went for a late lunge, and both cars collided at full speed on the main straight. Double DNF. While no one was hurt, the crash tore through the team dynamic. Ricciardo felt the team didn't support him fairly. He later left Red Bull, and many believe this crash was a breaking point in his decision. Ricciardo would eventually return years later, ironically, as a reserve driver behind Verstappen, now a multiple-time world champion. Sometimes, full circle comes with a bit of sting, but not all crashes are historic. Some are just bizarre. Nicolas Latifi, for example, became unintentionally famous for a series of strange incidents, none more impactful than his crash at the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. In the final laps, Latifi hit the wall, triggering a safety car that dramatically altered the championship. The timing of the restart and decisions made by race control helped Max Verstappen overtake Lewis Hamilton and win the title on the last lap. Latifi received threats and abuse online, something no athlete should ever face. While he later acknowledged the mistake, it's worth remembering that no driver crashes on purpose. He was simply a small variable in a much larger controversy. Still, internet memes followed, including the infamous nickname Goatifi. It's important, however, to distinguish between playful banter and harmful ridicule. In another incident at Monaco, Latifi lightly hit the wall behind a safety car, a moment widely shared, but often lacking technical context. He claimed throttle issues, and while it's easy to mock, driving an F1 car isn't as simple as turning a steering wheel. These incidents may be laughable to fans, but within the cockpit, every crash carries consequences. Lastly, let's revisit a moment of redemption, a crash that didn't cause harm, but nearly caused a team breakdown. Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, once close friends and karting teammates, became fierce rivals at Mercedes. Their infamous crash at the 2016 Spanish Grand Prix not only knocked both cars out, it ignited a crisis. Team bosses considered suspending one or both drivers. Internal investigations were launched. Trust was broken. Hamilton even reportedly told the team he wasn't sure he wanted to continue. Meanwhile, Rosberg capitalized on the tension and went on to win the 2016 championship, retiring just days later. Although their friendship was never fully repaired, both drivers eventually showed mutual respect for their time together. That's the thing about F1 crashes. They aren't always about metal and speed. Sometimes, the real damage happens in relationships, legacies, or the rulebooks left behind. But one thing is clear: every crash, whether tragic, bizarre, or political, pushes the sport forward. Because Formula One isn't just about going fast. It's about learning from what went wrong and making sure it never happens again. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the moments that reshaped F1, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories from the track, because there's always more beneath the surface.